On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina.
All right, everybody, I'm here with Dwayne Peterson of the Houston Astros organization. Dwayne, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate your time. Tell the listeners about yourself, if you would, please.
So I'm going into my 6th year with the Astros organization. This will be my 2nd year in AAA. We're making the move to Round Rock this year. So I've spent my whole career with the Astros organization. That's the only exposure I've had to baseball S&C, other than some small internships in college and whatnot.
So when we were emailing setting this up, you said that you have a unique story that you'd like to share, and so the floor is yours. I want to hear the story. I want to hear whatever you got and whatever you're willing to share.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of long. I might have to go back a ways. But so when I was little, so I've went through a lot of adversity in my life, and I haven't taken a traditional path really to anything. When I was young, and I've never told my mom or my wife this, but when I was young, this kid, I'll never forget this. He held a knife to my head on the playground and threatened me, and he actually cut me on my forehead, and I have a scar from it, and that really damaged me for a while. And I was before that I was an active kid and liked sports and whatnot, and then after that I just kind of buried myself into like food, and I ended up becoming overweight as a kid, and that led to the typical getting picked on, and not having too much fun with school and those types of things, and it really damaged me for a while. And so as I grew up, you start hearing people telling you can't do things, and those types of things. And I always hated the word can't. I always hated that. It always driven me. And so one day, it was right before I think like 6th, 7th grade maybe. And someone was like, "Oh, you can't play sports, you can't be active, you can't do this," and so that really stuck with me and driven me to become fit and lose weight, and I just committed myself, the next year or so to doing that, and next thing you know, I get to high school, and so people tell me I can't play football, and I'll never make the team, and never succeed. And so I do that. I prove them wrong there, and I began my football career, and I stunk. I mean, I wasn't any good, and that between like my junior and senior year, I said I committed myself to it, and I spent that whole summer. I'll never forget it. I spent that whole summer training, and I didn't go out. I didn't go with anyone. I stayed out of relationships. I literally became obsessed with making myself better, and I did, and I ended up that senior year I played really well, and got ended up getting a D1 college offer, and they told me I couldn't do that either. They said you'll never play college football and never make a team. And so I did, and I sacrificed so much. I was 170 pounds. I was a wide receiver, and I remember taking a beating, just taking a beating, and I had so many concussions, and I literally just sacrificed myself in order to do that, just to prove people that I could do that, and I wanted to play in the NFL, but it didn't work out because of that, because of how much I had to sacrifice, and how many concussions I had, and this and that, and I spent a lot of time wondering why, and I just think that God said no to that, and He wanted me to do something else, and so this kind of led me to wanting to help people, and I got into personal training, and that kind of thing. And I've always loved the process, and I've always loved training and getting better. And I've always enjoyed that. And so, even while I was, helping others lose weight and did personal training, that didn't satisfy me. And I I knew that I could do something more than that, and that's kind of how I got into strength and conditioning. I went and got my CSCS and just kind of studied on my own about it, and um, um, started doing some small internships, and I got into bodybuilding and powerlifting, and I've competed in that for a while, and even with strength and conditioning, it was hard to land anything. And I mean, you know how it is. And it's you got to do internships here and there, and nobody wants to pay you, anything. And then if you want to get a decent position, you got to have experience. It's like, well, I can't get any experience if I can't, you don't let me. I just want to be in the door, man. I just want to learn. I just want to work with people who know more about this than I do. And I still couldn't get that opportunity. And I went, I want to say, after I graduated school, I went maybe 2.5 years without landing a decent position. And I just worked for free. I did internships and just trained some high school athletes here and there. And finally, I remember I was doing an internship at a D3 school. It's kind of local here to Mount St. Joe University. And I did that for a while. And one day, the guy I was interning under just, they have, I forget how many sports, but they had one S&C coach for however many sports, and he was just slammed. So he asked me to take over baseball. And like I said, I've never played baseball. I played football a lot of my life, and he asked me to take it over, and I just said yeah, and that was kind of my first exposure to baseball. So I did that for a while, and then I remember one day just searching, just cruising the job postings and job boards, and like I always did, and I seen that there was this super old post for the Astros, super old. I mean, it was like maybe 5-6 months old, and I just said screw it and threw my resume in. And it literally just, my resume wasn't that deep, didn't have much on it, and I threw it in and thought nothing of it. And their coordinator called me the next day, and I don't know what he saw in me. I don't know what it was, but he hired me, and I had to be, I had to tell my wife I was married. My wife was married at the time. We got married, I think the year before I got this job, and I had to be in Florida the next 2 days. It was crazy because I guess they fired their short season guy during extended, and so I had to go down there for that. And I've been with them ever since, and it's been a very rewarding process, and it's one of them things where for a while I always wondered why I didn't make it in the NFL and why football didn't work out, because I was so passionate about it. I loved it, and I think now I understand why. It's because because of this, I'm supposed to be in the position I am to help people and to help these athletes achieve something I couldn't. So.
Yeah, that's a great story of perseverance, man. And I feel like that's going to ring with a lot of coaches who, at least myself, when I played, I was so committed to the weight room and the process, like you said. And it was probably to a fault of it, probably affected me negatively on the field. But like you fall in love with that, and then you try to put that love of training on other guys and other athletes, and hopefully something clicks for them that helps them excel their careers. And that's kind of where we're all at, man. We're all, a lot of us anyway, are retired athletes who are just trying to help other athletes achieve, their ultimate goals that unfortunately we were never able to do.
For sure. Absolutely, man.
So kind of going along the lines of stories, we know your personal story now. I want to hear your best professional baseball story, whether it's a story of somebody overcoming the odds or something that got lost in translation, just whatever it is that sticks out in your mind as your most memorable baseball story.
I got a couple. I have two, and they both deal with players that, so like I said, I've been with the Astros my whole career. So I've had, I think, a very unique opportunity where I've been at every single level in an organization. I've moved up every single year, and so that's afforded me an opportunity to work with certain players every single year of their career and follow them and develop them myself. And that's something that's I mean, at least to other strength coaches that I've talked to in the sport, it's very rare, and you don't find that very often. And I have two players that I can think of right off the top of my head who I developed every year, and I've worked with, and developed that relationship, and put a lot of time into them, man. And they weren't high draft picks. I mean, they were like 30th rounders. They didn't make a lot of money. They were on the struggle, man. They're struggling and grinding, and they wanted it. I seen that passion in them, and I seen that drive in them, in both of them, and so I remember one of them's an outfielder, one of them's a pitcher, and I remember his first year I worked with the outfielder, and I'll leave their names out of it, but he broke his wrist like maybe game 2 of the season, and he was out for the whole season. And I just assumed, like, he's probably not going to want to do anything. He's going to shut it down. And I remember, having a position player lift the next day. He just gets his cast, and the dude comes in and wants to lift. And he's always asking me what he can do and what more he can do. And I'm telling you, that kid worked harder than anyone on that team, and he never played the whole season. And I knew right then he was a major leaguer. That's just what he had in him. And it was crazy because we traded him last season, last off season, and so this season, he was in AAA, and so we were in town and we were playing his team when he got called up to the big leagues, and I got to see him after the game and everything, and that's a special moment right there, and I'll never forget that. And then I stay in contact with him a lot, and it's very humbling, and just knowing that that moment changed not him and his family too, because they don't have a lot of money, and he's he's Latin, and that just changes everything for him, and so the other one is the other player. He's a pitcher. He's been in our organization for 5 years, and I developed him, worked with him, and finally, this year he kept that, he's always asking when he's going to get his chance, and how they are. They always try to get information out of us when they're going to the big leagues, and am I going to get my call up? And I knew that he put himself on the radar, and he was going to get his opportunity. I didn't know when, so it was, keeping that from him. And finally, I remember that toward the end of the season, he got his opportunity, and so the manager knew, like, that I was close to him, and he actually let me tell him that he was going to the big leagues, and that's the most special moment I've had in baseball. I'll never forget that, and it was awesome.
Yeah, that's honestly incredible, and that your manager recognized how strong your relationship was with that guy to let you do that that's unbelievable. You clearly have a great relationship with both of those guys, but especially the guy that they let you tell him he was going.
Yeah, that was unforgettable. And I thank that manager afterwards. That was a special moment for definitely him. And something I'll never forget for sure. Definitely makes all the insane hours that we put in and all that. It makes it all worth it right there. So.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Like, especially I think too that, like you said, they were late round guys. They weren't like high priority. Like, Those are the stories that really, really hit home for you, because your top prospect guys, you work with them, but they're going to get to the big leagues eventually. Yep. You play a small part, but sure. Guys like that, like, you can help develop them, and you can build that good relationship with them to the point that it sounds like you've had them all the way through the system.
Yeah, absolutely. I had them. I had them every year, and I got to see exactly what they had to put in and the struggles that they've had to get to that point,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, what do you believe in within strength and conditioning that others think you are crazy for believing? You've been through a lot of levels, you've seen a lot of things. What do you believe is crazy?
Um, so I have a couple things I think that are unique, and one is I believe in I push players hard in season, and I bring guys to we do heavy singles, and there's a lot of guys that will even hit PRs, lifetime PRs, in season, and um, I definitely think there's some mixed views on that in baseball, and there's some conservative mindsets out there who, kind of want to avoid injury in that way. But I think that if you're not, pushing your players at certain points and doing it the right way and bringing them to those levels that, you're putting them in danger of injury anyway. Um, I do think that at certain points and in certain ways, I do believe in the bench press for certain players, for certain athletes at certain times. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do a 1RM with any guys, but I do believe in some speed bench, some floor press, stuff like that. I will do that. I do believe in that. Not necessarily with our guys because I think it's frowned upon, and we're still not coming around to that fully yet. But in the off seasons, the guys I work for, we will do it. And I think that my I have a vision for how we should approach the off season and work with guys. I think that's a little different than the traditional approach that some organizations take with guys. And I think that a lot of times I know that the sport's different, and I think we settle for some things where we could be more drivers of change, if that makes sense.
No, I understand what you're saying there completely. Completely.
Yeah, it's and I've had some good discussions about it, and there's certain we have a couple players in our organization right now who I think could have been the big leagues this year, but because of our I don't want to say lackadaisical, but our you know I don't know. I don't know. Our approach in the off season isn't the best, and I think it hurt them. Because I think that the things that they needed to work on, it was the same thing every year. And I think we can improve on that through personal visits and some personal accountability with our athletes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, what do you think makes a strength and conditioning coach successful? Maybe in general, and then more specifically in professional baseball.
So, in general, I'm not gonna sit here and throw out say, oh, you need to know this as far as the X's and O's and the knowledge and all those things, the certifications and seminars and all that. You know what? Like, I think for the most part, guys are going to do that anyway. I think it's more the intangible things that make the difference with S&Cs. In general, I mean, I think if you're getting into this, I don't care if you're a collegiate strength coach or you want to get into the professional side of things, but you need to be driven and you need to be passionate about what you do, because if you're not, like, you're not, like I said, like, you're not going to make it, because you're not always going to have those opportunities in front of you. You're not just going to go to school, get your exercise science degree and your CSCS and be a head S&C somewhere. Like, you got to put in your time, you got to work for free, you got to grind, you got to make sacrifices. And if you're not driven and really love helping others, like, it's not, you're not going to make it, because you don't make a ton of money with this. Like, sure, there's some guys, Alabama's S&C makes a ton of money and stuff like that, but those are rare occurrences, and we don't get the recognition, and we don't make a lot of money, and in some aspects we're the offensive lineman of professional sports, because like the New England Patriots, all you hear about is Tom Brady, but you never hear about his offensive line and what kind of job they do to ensure that he's able to perform. And I think that in general, that's kind of what we are. Baseball, I mean, baseball side of things, I think that you need to definitely have some communication skills. You need to be an effective communicator. Just with the varying personalities you have to deal with and work with from a staff standpoint and player standpoint, you have to communicate across the board, not only with your team and your affiliate, but you got to communicate with your coordinator and when you get to the higher levels, you got to communicate with your major league staff as well. And everyone has to be on the same page. If they're not, it's going to hurt the players and it's going to hurt their development. And that's something that's a must. You have to have that. I think you have to. You obviously need to be organized, just from the standpoint of you gotta deal. Like I said, you got to deal with 27, sometimes upwards of 30 personalities, and you got so many reports you got to do, and you have to be organized. Or you're just gonna get lost. You have to do the little things. The little things, I think, matter, and I think they separate S&Cs in baseball. And it's not always going to be in the weight room. It's not always going to be, what you do from a programming standpoint. It's little things such as, your guys are, conditioning or doing, long distance conditioning, and you go and you get them each some water, and just little things that get buy-in and get trust and get players to believe in you. I think those things are important in baseball specifically.
Yeah, 100% on all of that, and I love the offensive lineman comparison there. I've never heard it said that way, but it's so true. It's so spot on. Just thinking about, like, we don't get the recognition. We're in the trenches. We're helping out the team without, being known about it, and that's just a perfect comparison. So,
think about the things that a lot of our job description, a lot of things we do. I know it varies in organizations, but there's things we have to do that aren't even like S&C. They're not in the CSCS. Like, there's so many things, in nutrition and reports, and there's times you got to do stuff for the other coaches, and there's, like, you got to go pick up players at the lower levels and take them to gyms, and there's so many things that go without saying that we have to do, and it falls on us to get the job done. We're in charge of keeping $1 million athletes healthy, in some instances, and developing guys, and yet when they make it and when they finally, let's say they help the organization, win a title or win a division, we don't get a word of recognition, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's one of the funniest things when a coach or somebody comes up to you and is like, "Have you been doing that the whole time?" Like, yeah. "Oh, you've been driving the guys to the gym?" "Yeah, that was me the whole time." So what advice do you have for others in the field, maybe young coaches looking to get in, or even old coaches that have been around a while who just want to stay sharp with their knowledge? What advice do you have?
Kind of like I said earlier, just do the little things. The little things go a long way. Be persistent. Don't let others tell you that you can't do something, that you can't achieve things or do certain things. And I think one of the most important things I'm going to say, and maybe it's frowned upon, but I'm going to say that I think you need to enjoy the journey. I think a lot of times, especially in what we do, there's so many levels that guys who, when they come into this, they want to get to the big leagues right now. They want to be a coordinator right now. They want all these things, and it's like, enjoy the process. There's a reason why you're there, and learn from it, grow from it, develop from it, develop those players, build those relationships, and when the time comes, you'll get your opportunity. You just got to be ready for it and make the most of it. But don't just say, "Oh, I want to get to the big leagues," and rush through it. Like, if I said that, there's so many stories and experiences I've had throughout our system, that are invaluable, that I'll take with me forever. And I think that whenever I do get the opportunity to do those things, I'll be a better S&C for it because I've experienced everything. So I think, like, my main thing would just be to tell guys to enjoy the process.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that eventually your opportunity is going to come to you, but you have to be prepared for it. And if you're not prepared, it's going to slip by you, and you might not ever get it. But wishing for that opportunity before you're prepared for it is not really the most ideal thing. I agree with you. Prepare, take the time, experience things, learn from it, and then when the opportunity presents itself, you're prepared to be in that role.
For
So
sure.
spot on advice, man. Spot on.
Absolutely.
So where do you go for continuing ed? Are you reading books? Are you attending seminars? You listening to podcasts? Where are you going for your own personal continuing ed?
I used to do a lot of reading and go to a lot of seminars. I'd go I went through some PRI courses, RPR courses, NSCA conferences, those types of things. I've read triphasic training, 531 method, West Side, all those kinds of things. I've read all those books. Here anymore, I enjoy meeting, listening, talking with inspirational people, people who have persevered in our field, or in strength and conditioning or lifting in general, and learning from them, and working out with guys and learning from them. People such as I like listening and following Clint Darden. He's he's a strong man. He's you can find him on like YouTube and stuff. He's very inspirational, man. The guy was, he has cancer, and he goes through. I can't even. I mean, it's unbelievable what the guy goes through. And the guy still trains and still lives his life. And I communicate with him all the time, and I talk to him. I've learned so much from that guy, and I think people can learn from those types of people. As far as, I'll do some continuing education every once in a while, but I've kind of slowed down on it a little bit and just kind of more or less trying to learn from people. And I think that's helping me more than anything.
No, that's a solid approach, man. You take down the essentials early on, like you said, triphasic, 531, West Side, whatever, and then as you get a little older, those things, and it's a time to start branching out elsewhere and talking to people. And I really believe that, like, you can listen to somebody talk or read their book, but if you want all the secrets or whatever people want to call it, you got to just talk to people. And there's only so much you can take from a book, where if I read it and I have a question, well, what do? I either go somewhere else, or I just go right to the source. And then if you go right to the source, you get that information and more. So I agree 100%, man. And it's cool that you get to talk to him regularly, and he's, helped you out and inspired you and done that for you.
Yeah, for sure. And there's times I'll read things, or, I've seen new training methods, and I try them out myself. And if they don't work, I'll just contact the person, and contact them and ask why, and ask questions. And that's invaluable, in my opinion.
Yeah, being your own lab rat it goes a long way. And I think some coaches miss out on that. And that's a big part of what we do. Read something, try it out yourself. If it works, hey, maybe I can use this. If it doesn't, well, figure out why it didn't work and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to do a lightning round. What do you got? You cool with that?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
All right, first one. Who is your biggest influence in the field of strength and conditioning?
Probably our Major League Strength coach, Brendan Berner. He was a coordinator that hired me, brought me in, and some of the things that he taught me how to be a pro, and he's super detail oriented, and made sure that I did things the right way from day one, and that's kind of influenced how I conduct myself on a day-to-day basis, and how I do my job. And he may he may not be the most knowledgeable guy, but he's willing to help others, and he's organized, and he's detail oriented, and those are things that are going to last with me throughout my S&C career.
For sure. Yeah, he's a great dude. One piece of equipment to train with, what would it be?
Barbell.
Right on. Biggest accomplishment professionally and or personally?
I mean, professionally, just being a part of those two players that I talked to about earlier, being a part of their career and being a part of their development, and seeing them realize their dream, and just little things, as when they reach out to me and we still communicate, almost weekly. That's probably my biggest professional accomplishment, I think. Personally, I don't know. I mean, I'm still proud of what I did when I was younger, and being able to say I'm a Division I football player. I think it's pretty special to me. I was able to squat 600 pounds last off season. That's definitely something I'm pretty proud of. And I'm definitely not done yet. I want to try to get to 700. So
I love that mentality. You hit 600, you want 700, you just keep going.
Yeah. My wife always complains. She's like, every time you say you want to do something, I'm like, she's like, you want to say you squatted 500, and then now it's 600, and she's always complaining because every time I hit one of those goals, it just increases again. And she's like, when are you going to be done? And I'm like, probably not. When I'm physically unable to do it, probably.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. You hit one goal and you automatically want the next, so I'm right there with you. Last one, any career other than strength and conditioning, what would you choose?
I'd probably be a veterinarian. I'm a huge dog lover. I have 3 dogs, and I honestly I would love to just work with animals every day and work with dogs and try to save other people's animals. I think that if there was a second thing that I'm almost as passionate about S&C as, it would be animals and working with them. So.
Yeah, it's very noble, and people that don't have dogs, like I have a dog myself, is like you don't understand how much they really mean to you until you have them. So like vets are one of those, like, okay, they might not get appreciated because they're just helping animals, but like when it's your animal, you're like, I don't care. You need to save my animal. Do whatever you can for me, because that's how much they mean. So,
for sure.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and sharing your story. It was really awesome talking some shop with you. If the listeners want to get in touch with you, where can we get more info from you? Are you on social media, or is there a better place to get in touch with you?
I mean, me and my wife have a joint Facebook. It's just Candy and space Dwayne, I believe. But we don't have, I'm not a big social media guy, so I don't have Twitter or Instagram or any of that stuff. I try to stay away from that as much as possible. So Facebook, it's really about it, man.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and we'll be catching up soon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everybody, that concludes this episode with Dwayne. I hope you enjoyed this one. It was really cool to hear his story and how unique his path has been to getting to where he is now. 3 things that I took from Dwayne: be an effective communicator, be organized, and be persistent. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.